And you're welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. It is still iBrand Daybreak. Initially, at the beginning of this program, I did mention how that the subsidy removal, of course, from the petrol is affecting just about the price of everything and anything else, and the Bakers Association of Nigeria not left out, because of course this hike has also affected of flour, sugar, yeast, and other raw materials. And that is where the Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria, AMCON, has announced plans to increase bread prices nationwide by 15%. The association noted that the resolution reached was due to the country's current economic realities, which negatively impact bakers' production costs. Following the removal of fuel subsidies and the unification of the foreign exchange window, transportation, goods and services skyrocketed. And we have this report by our own Omolara Adebayo bringing us this report.
Speaking with some few bread sellers, they lament the incessant increase in the cost of bread ingredients, while hoping that normalcy will be restored soonest.
We never thought about it, say maybe they should add money on it or should go on strike. Because if they go on strike now, well, that's not our own game. We just sit at home, eating, spending money up and down. So we don't support it to go on strike. It's better to add money and put more effort on it.
That has been the Nigeria. What we go do? We go sit down for our house. God go bring another way. As everything does, what you want to make with us.
Also speaking, some bread consumers noted that bread is a staple food and one of the cheapest grab-and-go items that is available for both the rich and the poor. They urged the federal government to ensure the survival and sustainability of the industry.
On both sides, the manufacturers should be considerate because they are not selling it to government, they're selling it to people. While the people also, although it's a common meal, one can easily get bread, just like Gary. Both sides, they should weigh both sides, because if they are pushing the prices, law of demand and supply. So if the cost is high, there will be lesser people to reach there, buy them, and all that. So they should factor plenty.
It will affect so many people. It will affect us because that's why I said earlier, it's the last thing that people to afford, but it's no longer affordable. So I don't know how it will end.
If no urgent steps are taken to ensure the sustainability of the bread manufacturing industry, most factories that had been struggling to stay in business may be forced to close shop and throw thousands of workers into labor market while making bread beyond the reach of many. Omolara Adebayo.
And you're welcome back. I'm trying to find the words to express how I feel, Josh, because you heard one of the men who spoke, and he was saying that bread is like the least thing that everybody can afford, and now it's no longer affordable, and we're hearing of a hike. That means it's going to become even more unaffordable. It is quite a situation that we found ourselves in during the last administration. I hear so many people saying we've never had it as bad as we have it with this administration. I don't want to say that we're about to hear stuff like that or even worse. And I have so much faith that this renewed hope administration would actually come with some hope, because it looks like we're in a nosedive, we're a downward spiral. It keeps getting worse. Several people struggling to hold on to maintain standard, maintain positions, maintain, position where they are at. I mean, talking about the general running of their business, and of course maintaining standard. So you'll be seeing people either reduce the standard or the size or the quantity that they used to serve the public just so they are able. And this ultimately culminates into loss of jobs, loss of opportunities for citizens? How do you react?
Yeah, it's a very serious situation, and personally, I buy my bread for 1,000. I don't know about you. And with what we're saying now, it might likely hike. Now, the issue is not far-fetched. Like they say, an apple does not fall far from its tree. So we can trace where this problem is coming from. We are a dependent nation. We depend so much on things brought from abroad, from overseas. Now, wheat is something we depend on for the most part. And right about now, the war going on in Russia versus Ukraine would eventually impact on how much of these quantities we receive.
It's already impacting.
Has, because they would also want to keep some for themselves. Remember, in a war situation, the first thing that is affected, apart from health-related issue, is food and supply of water. So when these things happen, you can expect that we'll be having a deficit or a deficiency of this particular produce. And now that we can no longer get it in larger quantity, we have to pay extra to be able to get them. Now the production costs. Most of the times we produce by driving power with diesel. Now you understand what diesel is right now. You understand what fuel is right now. Then the production cost when it comes to after it has been produced, the packaging. Then finally it's been transported down to where it's going to be sold. You expect that it will also add its own effect on it. So at the end of the day, the landing cost when it comes to you as a, the consumer will not be what you're supposed to be buying it at the right price. But what can we do? It beholds on us as a nation. Let's look inward. Let's see how we can start producing these things. Even if it will mean, for the meantime, producing what we can consume. We know gradually, by the time we get to a level where we are self-sufficient, to be able to now say, let's even think of exporting for people who are going to buy from us, then we can start looking at quality control. But for now, we just have to produce what we can consume first. Until we do that, we'll continue to buy bread that is a staple food at a high price.
So for the individuals or people who may not be able to understand the effects the war going on in Ukraine and Russia is having on production of bread right here, there's something called the Black Sea Treaty. And right now, Russia is threatening to withdraw from that treaty. And last week we heard in the news that African leaders who were supposed to have a meeting with Putin were begging him not to withdraw from that treaty, because that's definitely going to cut off on grains supply from Russia and the East generally to Africa. And part of this grain supply, a good amount of it, a good part of it is wheat. And imagine, we're already struggling as it is. Imagine if Russia eventually withdraws from that Black Sea Treaty. We're hoping it doesn't happen. So that is the effect that we're currently having to deal with now, coupled with the fact that, of course, the subsidy removal, when petrol sneezes in Nigeria, everybody else catches a cold. And it is that cold that we're dealing with now. A 15% increase in the price of bread is not beans. It's not something to be trivial about, to trivialize. It is a huge increase. You mentioned that you buy your bread for 1,000 naira. Let us even assume that that is the very sophisticated type of bread. Let us bring it home to the agege bread on the streets, being carried on the heads by these beautiful women who sell it with their wagon. Join it. You can't. These pieces of bread are sold for between 200 naira to 250 naira to 300 naira, depending on the size that you're buying. That is for the average young man on the street who pushes a wheelbarrow, who the bus conductors, the drivers, the people, the welders, the vulcanizers, the people that patronize these people, the young man on computer village who repairs phones might just want to buy a wagon and bread and eat. He might not be able to afford that any longer if this 15% increment happens. Because why? Then bread goes from 200 naira to 400 naira to 450 naira to 700 naira. It is a lot. It is beyond 100% increase. And you can just begin to imagine the effect it has on the individual economy of these people. And I like to say that I sit on the fence. I like to say that I keep my fingers crossed and stay hopeful. But this one, it touched me.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, it does.